Some stories find you when you're not looking for them. They arrive in whispers, in fragments, in the margins of old newspapers, or the back rooms of estate sales. I've collected more than I care to admit. This one came to me 3 years ago. A single photograph, tucked inside a sketchbook I bought at an auction. The sketchbook was empty except for one drawing and finished, abandoned mid-stroke. But the photograph told me everything I needed to know. This is the story of Marcus Webb and the thing he drew into existence. Marcus Webb was the kind of artist who worked in coffee-stained notebooks and kept irregular hours. He taught figure drawing twice a week at a community college in Portland. But his real work, the work that mattered to him, happened in the early morning hours, when the city was still sleeping and his mind was sharp. He specialized in portraits, not the flattering kind. Marcus drew people as they truly were, the exhaustion behind their eyes, the weight they carried in their shoulders, the small betrayals written into the corners of their mouths. His subjects rarely liked what they saw, but they always admitted it was accurate. It was late October when Marcus first noticed the woman. She appeared at the coffee shop where he worked most mornings, always sitting 3 tables away, always facing his direction. She never ordered anything, never spoke to anyone. She simply watched. At first, Marcus assumed she was homeless. Portland had plenty of people seeking warmth in public spaces, but her clothes were clean, if outdated. A gray wool coat that looked like it belonged to another decade. Dark hair pulled back severely. Pale skin that seemed to reject the warm lighting of the cafe. What unsettled Marcus most were her hands. They never moved, never fidgeted, never reached for a phone or a book or anything at all. They simply rested on the table, perfectly still, fingers slightly curled as if waiting to grasp something. After 3 days of this, Marcus did what he always did when something bothered him. He drew her. The sketch came easy, too easy. Marcus's pencil moved across the page with unusual confidence, capturing the severe angles of her face, the hollow quality of her stare, the unnatural stillness of her posture. But as he worked, something strange happened. Details appeared in his drawing that he hadn't consciously observed. A small scar above her left eyebrow, a slight asymmetry to her pupils, and her hands when he looked down at what he'd drawn. Her fingers were no longer curled passively. In his sketch, they were reaching forward, reaching toward him. Marcus looked up sharply. The woman was gone. Her table sat empty, the chair pushed in as if no one had ever been there. He told himself she'd simply left while he was focused on his work. But when he asked the barista kid named Tyler, who noticed everything, Tyler insisted no one had been sitting at that table all morning. "Just you, man?" Tyler said, looking at Marcus with mild concern. "You feeling okay?" Marcus left without answering. That night, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the drawing. It sat on his desk, pinned under a coffee mug, but he could feel it there, waiting. At 2:47 a.m., he woke to the sound of pencil on paper. The sound was coming from his studio, the converted bedroom where he kept his supplies and his works in progress. Marcos lay in the darkness, listening to the familiar scratch and whisper of graphite on sketch paper. Someone was drawing in his apartment. He should have called the police, should have grabbed something to defend himself. Instead, Marcus found himself walking toward the studio, drawn by a curiosity that overrode his fear. The door was open. The desk lamp was on, though he distinctly remembered turning it off. And sitting at his desk, using his pencils, was the woman from the coffee shop. She didn't look up as he entered. Her hand moved with mechanical precision, adding lines and shadows to a large piece of paper Marcus didn't recognize. The sketch was nearly complete. It was a portrait of Marcus, but something was wrong with it. In the drawing, Marcus's eyes were hollow, not closed, not shadowed, but genuinely empty, as if someone had carefully erased him and left only blank space behind. His mouth was open in a silent scream, and his hands were pressed against an invisible barrier, fingers splayed in desperation. "What are you doing?" Marcus's voice came out as a whisper. The woman's hand stopped, slowly, so slowly it seemed to take minutes rather than seconds. She turned to face him. Her eyes were the same hollow voids he'd seen in the drawing. "Finishing," she said. Her voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere far away, echoing through a long tunnel. "You started it. Now I'd finish." Marcus tried to move, tried to run, but his body wouldn't respond. He could only watch as she turned back to the drawing and lifted the pencil once more. With 3 precise strokes, she completed the portrait, and Marcus felt something fundamental shift inside him. The woman stood, leaving the drawing on the desk. As she moved toward the door, she passed within inches of Marcus, and he caught a scent like old paper and dust, the smell of something long forgotten. "Wait," Marcus managed to say, his voice returning. "What did you do to me?" She paused in the doorway, her back to him. "You drew me," she said simply. "You gave me form when I had none, gave me substance when I was only shadow. But everything requires balance, a trait. I don't understand, you will." She stepped through the doorway and vanished, not into the hallway, but into nothing, her form simply dissolving like smoke in wind. Marcus rushed to the desk and grabbed the portrait she'd drawn. In the lamplight, he could see every detail rendered with impossible skill. The hollow eyes, the desperate hands, the silent scream. And then he noticed something that made his blood freeze. The drawing was changing. The background, which had been blank, was slowly filling in with details. A room. His room. His studio. And in the background, barely visible but growing clearer, was a figure. The woman. Watching. Waiting. Marcus grabbed his phone and took a photo of the drawing, his hands shaking. Then he tore the portrait into pieces, shredding it, until nothing remained but confetti scattered across his desk. For a moment, he felt relief. Then he looked at the photos on his phone. The drawing was whole again, unchanged, and the woman in the background was closer now. Marcus didn't sleep that night, or the next. He tried to delete the photo, but it reappeared. He threw away his phone and bought a new one, but the image was there, waiting in his gallery as if it had always existed. Worse, he began to see the woman everywhere. Not in person, never quite in person, but in reflections. In the corner of his vision, in the faces of strangers that would shift and change when he looked directly at them. And his art changed too. Everything Marcus drew now came out wrong. Portraits twisted into grotesque caricatures, landscapes filled with impossible geometry. Still lifes that seemed to writhe on the page. His students noticed. His colleagues noticed. Within 2 weeks, Marcus stopped teaching, stopped going out, stopped drawing entirely. But the woman's portrait of Himta, one he'd torn to pieces, continued to evolve. In the photo on his phone, the background grew more detailed. The woman drew closer, and Marcus's expression in the drawing shifted from fear to resignation to something that looked almost like acceptance. 3 months after that October morning, Marcus's landlord found the apartment empty. No forwarding address, no note. Just a studio full of abandoned sketches and one piece of paper pinned to the wall. It was the portrait the woman had drawn, somehow restored, somehow real. But Marcus was no longer screaming in the image. His eyes were still hollow, but his hands had dropped to his sides. And standing beside him, one hand resting possessively on his shoulder, was the woman in the gray coat. Both figures stared out from the page with the same empty eyes. Both waiting, both watching. The photograph I found in that sketchbook 3 years ago showed Marcus's studio, empty except for that final portrait pinned to the wall. I've tried to find Marcus Webb. Searched databases, contacted his family, followed every lead. There's no record of him after that October. No death certificate, no missing persons report. Nothing. Just that drawing, which I now keep in a locked drawer. I don't look at it often, but sometimes, late at night, I can hear the sound of pencil on paper coming from that drawer. Scratch. Whisper. Scratch. And I wonder if she's drawing someone new. I wonder if she's drawing me. Some stories find you when you're not looking for them. And some stories never let you go.